My husband's twin's wife swapped our babies, but I swapped them back before she found out. I still remember the smell of disinfectant mixed with roses that filled the hallway of Westmont Private Hospital on the night everything changed. I was 32 years old, lying in a recovery room with my newborn daughter cradled against my chest, and I thought I knew what happiness felt like. I thought I understood love. But I didn't know yet that love would ask me to carry a secret so heavy it would reshape my entire life for 20 years. My name is Esther, and this is the story of how I became a thief in the night to protect what was already mine, and how silence became both my weapon and my prison. It started 8 months before that fateful night, on a sunny afternoon in March when I saw those 2 pink lines on the pregnancy test. My husband Ezra and I had been trying for 3 years, 3 long painful years of doctor's appointments, negative tests, silent tears in the bathroom, and whispered prayers that seemed to disappear into empty air. When I finally held that positive test in my trembling hands, I cried so hard I thought my soul would break open from pure joy. Ezra found me on the bathroom floor, shaking with happiness. He dropped to his knees beside me, pulling me into his arms like I was made of glass and gold. "We're going to be parents," he whispered against my hair, his voice cracking. "Esther, we're finally going to be parents." I held on to him and let myself believe that everything would be perfect from that moment forward. I was so naive. I didn't know that joy and darkness could exist in the same space, that someone could smile at you while plotting to destroy your entire world. What made the pregnancy even more special, or so I thought, was that Lerina, my husband's twin brother's wife, was pregnant too. She was about 2 weeks ahead of me. When we found out at a family dinner, everyone celebrated like it was fate. 2 cousins, born almost at the same time, growing up together like siblings. "Our children will be best friends," Nolan said, raising his glass. He was Ezra's identical twin brother, though they were nothing alike in personality. Nolan was ambitious, always chasing the next promotion at his corporate law firm, always thinking 3 steps ahead. Ezra was steadier, warmer, the kind of man who remembered birthdays and called his mother every Sunday. "To the next generation," Ezra added, his hand protective on my belly. I looked across the table at Lerina and smiled. She smiled back, but it didn't reach her eyes. It never did. Lerina was beautiful in a way that made you think of ice sculptures, perfectly carved, cold, and slightly dangerous if you got too close. She had sharp cheekbones, sleek black hair that never seemed to have a strand out of place, and a way of looking at you that made you feel examined rather than seen. From the day I married into the family 5 years earlier, I'd felt her watching me with something I couldn't quite name. Not hatred exactly, but not friendship either. Something hungrier than that. As our pregnancies progressed, that feeling intensified. Lerina became obsessed with comparing every detail. At family gatherings, she'd ask pointed questions that felt like tiny knives. "How much weight have you gained, Esther?" "Oh, only 15 pounds. "I've gained 12. "The doctor says I'm perfect." "Your baby's kicking?" "Mine kicks constantly. "The doctor says it means she's very strong." "You're having so much morning sickness?" "I barely had any. I guess some women just handle pregnancy better than others." Every conversation became a competition I didn't know I was entered in. At first, I tried to be gracious, telling myself she was just anxious, that pregnancy brought out insecurity in everyone. But as the months went on, I began to dread seeing her. There was a sharpness to her questions, a barely concealed bitterness that made my skin prickle with unease. "She's jealous," my best friend Mariah said one afternoon over tea. "Classic insecure woman behavior. Just ignore it." But I couldn't ignore it. Because every time Lerina looked at my growing belly, I saw something dark flicker across her face. Something that looked almost like rage. I should have paid more attention to that look. I should have understood what it meant. But I was too happy, too focused on the miracle growing inside me, to see the danger standing right in front of me, wearing a designer dress and a fake smile. We both chose Westmont Private Hospital for delivery. It was the most exclusive facility in the city, small and luxurious with only 12 private rooms, decorated more like a boutique hotel than a medical center. The walls were soft gray, the floors were heated, and every room had a view of the city skyline. It cost a fortune, but for our first babies, both families agreed it was worth it. Lerina booked her delivery with Dr. Carr, a physician with 25 years of experience and a reputation for handling complex births. I met him during a hospital tour in my 8th month, and something about him immediately made me uncomfortable. His handshake was too soft, too lingering. His smile was practiced, like something he'd learned rather than felt. His eyes were calculating, the eyes of a man who weighed every interaction on a scale of personal benefit. Dr. Carr is the best, Lerina insisted when I mentioned my unease. He's delivered over 2,000 babies. Nolan researched him thoroughly. You should use him too. But I couldn't shake the feeling, so I chose a different doctor, Dr. Millicent Rhodes, a warm woman in her 50s with kind eyes and steady hands. She delivered 3 of Mariah's children and had a reputation for treating her patients like family. Trust your instincts, Dr. Millicent told me at our first appointment. A mother's intuition is real, Esther. Don't ever ignore it. I wish I'd remembered those words sooner. On November 3rd, 2 weeks before my official due date, my water broke at 2:47 in the morning. I woke to wetness and immediate pressure, my body already preparing for what was coming. Ezra drove like a man possessed, one hand on the wheel and one hand gripping mine at every stoplight. Breathe, baby, just breathe, he kept saying, though I think he was talking to himself as much as to me. By the time we reached Westmont at 3:30 a.m., I was already in active labor, contractions coming hard and fast. They just wait for the right moment to break free. And my secret was about to explode. Zaira turned 20 on a golden Saturday in September. She graduated from university with highest honors, earning a degree in business administration with a minor in sustainable development. She was brilliant, driven, and had a vision for the future that took my breath away. More than that, she'd spent the past year working alongside me in the logistics company I'd built from nothing. Starting 15 years ago with a single delivery van and a dream, I'd grown it into a multi-million-dollar enterprise with contracts across 3 states. Zaira had thrown herself into learning every aspect of the business: operations, finance, client relations, strategic planning. She was ready. More than ready. That morning, I called her into my home office, the room where I'd spent countless late nights building something I could pass down to her. The walls were lined with awards and photographs, the company's growth charted in frames and certificates. Sit down, sweetheart, I said, gesturing to the leather chair across from my desk. Zaira sat, her eyes curious and bright. What's going on, Mom? You look serious. I slid a leather folder across the mahogany desk. Open it. She did, and I watched her eyes go wide, then wider. Her hands started to shake. Mom, this is 40% shares in the company. You've earned it, I said, my voice thick with emotion. You're brilliant, Zaira. You have instincts I've spent 20 years developing, and you're only 20. You see solutions where others see problems. You inspire people. You make them want to be better. I want you as my partner, officially. I want your name on the door. I want your voice in every major decision. Tears spilled down her cheeks. Mom, I don't know what to say. Say you'll make me proud, I replied. Though you already have. Every single day since you were born, you've made me proud. She came around the desk and wrapped her arms around me, holding on like she'd never let go. Thank you, she whispered against my shoulder. Thank you for believing in me. Thank you for everything. I held my daughter and felt a fierce protective love that bordered on violent. This was what I'd fought for. This moment. This woman. This future. Everything had been worth it. We celebrated that evening at Meridian, the most elegant restaurant in the city. I'd reserved the entire private dining room, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city lights, crystal chandeliers, tables set with white linens and silver that caught the candlelight like captured stars. The whole family came. Ezra, of course, beaming with pride. Nolan and Lerina. Kala, now a beautiful 20-year-old with gentle eyes and an artist's soul. My best friend Mariah and her family. Close business associates. Everyone who'd been part of our journey. We toasted Zaira's success with champagne that cost more than most people's monthly rent. Speeches were made, laughter filled the air, and for a few hours, everything felt perfect. But I noticed Lerina wasn't drinking. She sat at the far end of the table, her face tight, her eyes fixed on Zaira with an intensity that made my skin crawl. She'd barely touched her food. She didn't join in the conversations. She just watched. Kala, sitting beside her mother, looked uncomfortable. She kept glancing at Lerina, then at the floor, her shoulders hunched like she was trying to make herself smaller. Quite a gift, Lerina said suddenly, her voice cutting through the warm conversation like a blade through silk. The table went quiet. 40% of a multi-million-dollar company, Lerina continued, her smile sharp enough to draw blood. That's extraordinarily generous. Zaira's earned it, I replied evenly, though warning bells were ringing in my head. Has she? Lerina stood abruptly, her chair scraping loudly against the hardwood floor. Or is it just easier to give everything to the golden child? Lerina, Nolan said quietly, his voice carrying a warning. Don't do this. But she ignored him, her eyes locked on mine. You know what, Esther? I've watched you for 20 years. Perfect Esther. Perfect life. Perfect daughter. Perfect everything. While I got... She gestured toward Calla, who'd gone pale. While I got stuck with weakness and disappointment. Mom, Calla whispered, her voice breaking. Please stop. No. Lerina's voice rose. I'm done being quiet. I'm done pretending. Everyone needs to know the truth. My heart stopped beating. The room spun. This was it. After 20 years, this was the moment everything would shatter. Lerina pulled a folded envelope from her purse and slammed it on the table. There was a mistake at the hospital. The night our daughters were born, the babies were switched. Gasps erupted around the table. Zaira's face drained of color. Ezra stood up. Lerina, what are you talking about? I'm talking about the truth. Lerina shouted. The truth I've kept buried for 2 decades. The babies were switched, Ezra. Zaira isn't Esther's biological daughter, she's mine. And Calla is hers. The room exploded into chaos. Voices overlapping, people standing, Calla starting to cry. Nolan looked like he'd been struck by lightning. Lerina pointed at me, her hand shaking. I've known for years. I discovered it when Calla was 5, when we did blood typing for a medical procedure. I had the hospital records pulled. I had private DNA tests done. The results are right here. She waved the envelope. Zaira is my biological daughter, which means by law, by blood, she's mine. And so is her 40% share of your company. She was magnificent in her delusion. I almost admired her commitment to the lie. Almost. And you're saying this now why? I asked, my voice deadly calm. After 20 years? Because I'm done watching you give my daughter everything while you force me to raise yours. Lerina spat. Because I'm tired of watching Zaira thrive while Calla struggles. Because it's time for justice. Justice. Calla stood up, tears streaming down her face. You think treating me like garbage my whole life is justice? You think making me feel worthless every single day is something you can just fix by claiming I'm not even yours? Calla, you don't understand. Lerina reached for her daughter. Calla jerked away. I understand perfectly. You've never loved me. Never. And now I know why, because you've spent 20 years resenting me for not being her. The pain in Calla's voice shattered something inside me. This was my fault. All of it. My silence had allowed this cruelty to continue. But before I could speak, the door to the private dining room opened. Dr. Carr walked in. He looked ancient now, 20 years having carved deep lines into his face. His shoulders were stooped, his hair completely gray. But his eyes were clear, and filled with something I recognized. Guilt. Pure, unadulterated guilt. I'm sorry to interrupt, he said, his voice shaking. But I couldn't let this continue. I couldn't stay silent anymore. Lerina's face went white. What are you doing here? I've been following your family, Dr. Carr said quietly. For years. Watching from a distance. Living with what I did. And when I heard about this celebration, when I heard you were finally making your move, I knew I had to come forward. He walked to the table and placed a new manila envelope in front of me. His hands trembled as he did it. 20 years ago, he began, his voice growing stronger, Mrs. Lerina paid me $50,000 to switch the babies. Her daughter was born with respiratory distress syndrome. She was weak, struggling. Mrs. Esther's daughter was healthy, strong, perfect. Out of jealousy and fear, Mrs. Lerina asked me to swap them. And I did it. I was drowning in gambling debts, and the money was too tempting. So I became a monster. The room was absolutely silent now. Even Lerina had stopped protesting. I altered the hospital records, Dr. Carr continued. I had a nurse, Patricia Chin, who since passed away, help me switch the wristbands. We moved the babies in the middle of the night. When Mrs. Esther woke up and noticed something was wrong, we gaslit her. We told her she was confused, exhausted, imagining things. We made her doubt her own instincts. I felt Zaira's hand find mine under the table and squeeze tight. But what none of us knew, Dr. Carr said, turning to look directly at me, was that Mrs. Esther figured it out. She overheard me and Mrs. Lerina talking in the hallway. And that same night, she went to the NICU and switched the babies back. Every eye in the room turned to me. She corrected our crime, Dr. Carr said. She took her own biological daughter back and returned Mrs. Lerina's daughter to where she belonged. And she's kept that secret for 20 years. That's impossible, Lerina whispered, but her voice had no strength behind it. Dr. Carr opened the envelope and pulled out documents. These are the real hospital records, the ones I kept hidden all these years. They show the switch, the timing, the nurse's notes. And this, he held up another paper, is a DNA test I had processed last week. I took samples from glasses at a family gathering last month. I had to know the truth before I came forward. He laid the paper on the table. The results prove that Zaira is biologically Esther and Ezra's daughter. And Kala is biologically Lerina and Nolan's daughter. The truth has been right in front of us for 20 years. Lerina collapsed into her chair, her face in her hands. Nolan stared at his wife like he'd never seen her before. You did this? You tried to steal their child. I thought. Lerina's voice was muffled. I thought if I had the healthy baby, everything would be different. Everything would be better. I thought I deserved her more. And then, Kala said, her voice breaking, when you got stuck with me, you punished me for it. Every single day. You made me feel worthless because I wasn't her. The pain in that room was suffocating. I couldn't breathe. Ezra turned to me, his face a mixture of shock, hurt, and confusion. You knew? All these years you knew. I found out the night it happened, I said quietly. I heard them talking in the hallway. And I couldn't let her get away with it. I couldn't let her raise my daughter while I was forced to pretend her sick baby was mine. So I switched them back. And I never told anyone because I was terrified. Terrified that admitting what I'd done would somehow mean losing Zaira. That there would be investigations and questions and someone would decide I'd kidnapped her from the NICU even though she was my own child. So you just stayed silent? Ezra asked. For 20 years? Yes, I whispered. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. But I couldn't risk losing her. I couldn't. Zaira squeezed my hand tighter. Mom, she said softly. Look at me. I turned to her, tears streaming down my face. You saved me, Zaira said. You fought for me when no one else would. You kept me safe. You gave me this incredible life. I'm not angry. I'm not hurt. I'm grateful. But I let Kala suffer, I said, looking at my niece, my real niece, my husband's brother's daughter. I watched you hurt her for 20 years, and I didn't stop it. Kala wiped her eyes and came around the table. To my shock, she knelt beside my chair and took my other hand. Aunt Esther, she said, you were the only person who made me feel loved. The only person who told me I was enough. You saved Zaira, yes. But in your own way, you saved me too. You showed me what real love looks like. You gave me a safe place. If you'd spoken up, if you'd told everyone the truth back then, maybe I would have been taken from my parents entirely. Maybe I would have ended up in foster care. Maybe everything would have been worse. I don't know. But what I do know is that you were kind to me when my own mother wasn't. And that matters. I pulled her into my arms and held her, this beautiful young woman who'd survived 20 years of coldness and still had the capacity for grace. Dr. Carr cleared his throat. I'm turning myself in to the authorities tomorrow. I'll face whatever consequences come. I wanted you all to know the truth first. I wanted to try to make this right, even though I know I can never truly fix what I broke. He looked at me one last time. I'm sorry, Mrs. Esther. For everything. You were right to take your daughter back. I should have stopped Mrs. Lerina in the first place. I should have been better." Then he turned and walked out, leaving us all sitting in the wreckage of 20 years of lies. The weeks that followed were excruciating but necessary, like setting a broken bone. It hurt terribly, but it was the only way to heal properly. Lerina's crime became public knowledge. The police investigated, though no charges were filed against me. A mother protecting her own child through unorthodox means, the district attorney said, in response to an actual kidnapping. Dr. Carr pled guilty to conspiracy, fraud, and medical malpractice. He lost his medical license and served 2 years in prison, though he said it was the freest he'd felt in decades. Nolan filed for divorce immediately. The betrayal was too deep, too fundamental. "She tried to steal a baby," he said to me one afternoon, his voice hollow. "And then she spent 20 years punishing our own daughter for existing. I can't forgive that. I can't even understand it." He got full custody of Kala, who'd turned 21 by then and was legally an adult anyway. They began the long, painful process of rebuilding their relationship. Therapy. Honest conversations. Tears and anger and slowly, gradually, healing. "I always knew something was wrong," Kala told me months later. "I could feel that she didn't love me the way mothers should love their children. But I thought it was my fault. I thought I was unlovable. Finding out the truth was horrible, but it was also freeing. Because it wasn't me. It was never me." Lerina disappeared from our lives. I heard through family connections that she moved to another state, changed her name, and tried to start over. Part of me hoped she found peace. Most of me didn't care anymore. She'd made her choices, and now she had to live with the consequences. My marriage to Ezra nearly didn't survive. He was hurt that I'd kept such an enormous secret. "I'm your husband," he said one night, his voice breaking. "I'm your partner. How could you not tell me?" "Because I was terrified," I replied honestly. "Terrified that telling anyone would somehow lead to losing her. Terrified that you'd be legally obligated to report it. Terrified that in trying to do the right thing, I'd destroy everything. I know that's not fair to you. I know it was wrong. But I was paralyzed by fear." We went to counseling. Hours and hours of sessions where we talked about trust, fear, partnership, and forgiveness. Where I learned to let someone else carry part of the weight I'd been holding alone. Where Ezra learned to understand the impossible position I'd been in. "I wish you'd trusted me," he said finally, months into therapy. "But I understand why you didn't. And I'm choosing to forgive you. Because you did what you thought you had to do to protect our daughter. And I can't fault a mother for that." Slowly, painfully, we rebuilt what had been cracked. It took time. It took work. But our love was strong enough to survive, and we both fought to keep it. Zaira handled the revelation with remarkable grace. "I'm still me," she said when I broke down crying one night, apologizing for the 100th time. "I'm still your daughter. I'm still Dad's daughter. DNA tests don't change 20 years of love. They don't change who raised me, who taught me, who shaped me into the person I am. You're my mother, Mom. You've always been my mother. That's the only truth that matters to me." She also developed a close relationship with Kala, not as cousins anymore, but as sisters of choice. They supported each other through the aftermath, two young women bound together by shared trauma and mutual understanding. "We chose each other," Zaira said. "Blood didn't make us family. Love did." And me? I learned to forgive myself. It took years, therapy, and countless conversations with people I trusted. But eventually, I came to understand that I'd done what I had to do in an impossible situation. That I wasn't a monster or a criminal. I was a mother who'd fought to protect her child when the entire system had failed her. I also learned that secrets are corrosive. That they eat away at you from the inside. That even secrets kept for good reasons can poison your life. I vowed never to keep something that important from Ezra again. No matter how scary. No matter how risky. Because partnership means sharing the weight, not carrying it alone. Today is Zaira's 40th birthday. She's now CEO of our company, which has grown beyond my wildest dreams under her leadership. She's married to a wonderful man named Marcus, and they have 2 children, my grandchildren, who call me Grandma Essie and climb into my lap for stories. Kala is a renowned music therapist, working with trauma survivors and helping them find healing through sound. She's engaged to a gentle soul named Adrian, and they're planning a spring wedding. She calls me Aunt Essie, and we have lunch every other week. Nolan remarried a kind woman named Sophie, and they're happy. He and Ezra rebuilt their brotherhood, though it's different now, tempered by pain but also deepened by truth. Ezra and I celebrated our 43rd anniversary last month. We've grown old together, gray hair and laugh lines and hands that still reach for each other in the dark. The secret left scars, but it didn't destroy us. If anything, surviving it made us stronger. Last week, Zaira called me into her office at the company headquarters, a gleaming building downtown with our names etched in the marble lobby. She had something to show me. "Look at this, Mom," she said, turning her computer screen toward me. It was a charitable foundation she'd created. The Esther Foundation for Maternal Advocacy. Its mission: to support mothers who've been gaslit or dismissed by medical professionals, to provide legal advocacy for mothers whose instincts are ignored, to reform hospital systems to prevent babies from being switched. "Because of what happened to you," Zaira said, "because you weren't believed when you knew something was wrong, this foundation will make sure other mothers are heard. That their instincts are respected. That their babies are protected." I couldn't speak. I just cried. "Your story mattered, Mom," Zaira said, coming around the desk to hold me. "Your fight mattered. And now it's going to help other mothers who are going through the same thing. Something good came from all that pain." Final reflection. Tonight, I sit on my porch watching the sunset, Ezra beside me in the chair he's occupied for 43 years. My grandchildren's laughter drifts through the open window behind us. Zaira's car is in the driveway. She stopped by for Sunday dinner, like she does every week. I think about that night 20 years ago. The night I became a thief to reclaim what was mine. The night I chose silence over truth because I was terrified of losing everything. For 20 years, I carried a secret that could have destroyed us all. I thought revenge would heal the pain, but it was truth that brought peace. Lerina tried to steal my baby, my joy, and my name, but in the end, truth gave everything back to me. It gave me my daughter. It gave me clarity. It gave me the freedom to stop carrying weight that was never mine to carry alone. I've learned that justice doesn't always come through anger. Sometimes, it comes quietly, wrapped in time and truth. And when it does, it sets every heart free. I've also learned that mother's intuition is real. That bone-deep knowledge that something is wrong, that voice inside that screams the truth even when everyone else says you're confused, that matters. That saves lives. That saved my daughter's life. The birthmark on Zaira's shoulder faded completely by the time she was 6 months old, just like the doctor said it would. But I don't need it anymore to know who she is. I know my daughter. I've always known. And that's the only truth that ever mattered. Sometimes the most powerful thing a mother can do is trust herself when the whole world tells her she's wrong. Sometimes love looks like silence, and sometimes it looks like speaking up. Sometimes justice takes 20 years to arrive, but when it does, it sets everyone free, the guilty, the innocent, and everyone caught in between. And sometimes, the greatest act of love is simply this: never giving up on the truth, no matter how long it takes to rise to the surface. The Yendi wheeled me into room 7, walls painted soft blue, a painting of sunflowers above the bed, dimmed lights creating a peaceful glow. I remember thinking it was a good omen. Sunflowers always turn toward the light, always find their way. I should have looked for the shadows instead. Dr. Millicent arrived within 30 minutes, her presence immediately calming. "You're doing beautifully, Esther," she said, checking my progress with gentle efficiency. "You're already 7 centimeters dilated. This baby is ready to meet you." Labor was intense, waves of pain that took my breath away, pressure that made me feel like I was being split in half, moments where I was certain I couldn't go on. But Ezra never left my side. He held my hand, whispered encouragement, wiped my forehead with cool cloths, and told me I was the strongest person he'd ever known. At 5:47 a.m., as the first light of dawn touched the windows, my daughter came into the world. She arrived screaming with powerful lungs and tiny fists clenched tight, her face scrunched up in outrage at being pulled from warmth into cold air. Dr. Millicent placed her on my chest, and the moment her skin touched mine, the world stopped spinning. I looked down at her perfect face and fell in love so deeply it physically hurt. She had a cap of dark, wet hair. Her eyes, when they fluttered open for a brief moment, were deep blue-gray, alert and ancient, like she'd lived 1,000 lives before this one. Her fingers wrapped around my thumb with surprising strength. And there on her left shoulder blade, just below where her neck met her shoulder, was a small birthmark shaped like a strawberry. It was about the size of my pinky fingernail, darker red against her pink skin. "She's perfect," Ezra whispered, tears streaming down his face unchecked. "Esther, she's absolutely perfect." I kissed her forehead, breathing in her smell, milk and warmth and new life and possibility. "Welcome to the world, little one," I whispered. "Welcome to the world. You're so loved. You're so wanted. You're everything." They let me hold her for 20 minutes, skin to skin, while she nuzzled against me and made small mewing sounds. Then Dr. Millicent gently said they needed to take her to the nursery for routine measurements and checks: weight, length, reflexes, vitamin K shot, eye ointment. "I'll have her back to you within the hour," a smiling nurse named Patricia promised. "You rest now, Mama. You did amazing." I reluctantly let them take her, watching as they wheeled her tiny bassinet out of the room. Ezra stayed with me, holding my hand as exhaustion crashed over me like a wave. I drifted into that strange floaty space between sleep and waking, my body wrung out but my heart fuller than I'd ever imagined possible. I thought the hard part was over. I thought we were safe. Around 8:15 a.m., I woke to a gentle knock on the door. A different nurse, younger with nervous eyes, stood in the doorway. "Mrs. Esther? I wanted to let you know that your sister-in-law, Mrs. Lerina, just delivered as well. She's in room 12. The family wanted you to know." My heart lifted. "That's wonderful. Is the baby healthy?" The nurse's smile faltered slightly. "It's a girl. She's being monitored. I'm sure the doctors will update the family soon." After she left, Ezra went to congratulate his brother while I dozed. When he returned 45 minutes later, his face was troubled in a way that made my stomach clench. "What's wrong?" I asked immediately, pushing myself up on the pillows despite the pain. He sat on the edge of the bed, his jaw tight. "The baby, Lerina's daughter, she's having problems. Respiratory distress. Low blood oxygen. They've taken her to the NICU." My hand flew to my mouth. "Oh God. Is she going to be okay?" "They think so. The doctors are running tests. But Lerina is." He paused, searching for words. "She's not handling it well. Nolan is trying to stay strong, but you can see he's terrified." Despite everything, despite the uncomfortable comments and cold looks and strange competition, my heart ached for them. No parent should have to watch their newborn struggle to breathe. No mother should have to deliver her baby and then watch her being rushed away to intensive care. "I'll visit her later," I said. "Once I'm feeling stronger. Once they bring our baby back." Ezra nodded and kissed my forehead. "Get some rest. I'm going to grab coffee and check on our daughter in the nursery." I closed my eyes, sending prayers into the universe for Lerina's baby, for all the struggling babies in the world. I felt grateful and guilty at the same time, grateful my daughter was healthy, guilty that Lerina's wasn't. I didn't know then that Lerina wasn't praying for her daughter. She was plotting how to take mine. At 1:30 p.m., they brought my baby back to me. The moment the nurse, a different one this time, older with a brisk manner, placed the bundle in my arms, every cell in my body screamed that something was wrong. I looked down at the baby's face, and my heart stuttered. These weren't my daughter's eyes. The baby I'd held that morning had alert, curious eyes that seemed to focus on my face even in those first moments. These eyes were cloudy, unfocused, glassy. They didn't track movement. They didn't seem to see anything at all. The cry was different too. My daughter had cried with power, with strength, her lungs announcing her presence to the world. This baby's cry was thin, weak, struggling. Like breathing itself was difficult. My hands began to shake as I adjusted the blanket, and that's when I saw it. Or rather, didn't see it. The birthmark was gone. The distinctive strawberry-shaped mark that had been clearly visible on my daughter's left shoulder blade, the mark I'd stared at while they'd weighed her, the mark I'd touched gently with my fingertip, was completely absent. This baby's shoulder was smooth, unmarked, pale pink. "This isn't my baby," I said, my voice coming out strangled. The nurse looked up from the chart. "I'm sorry." "This isn't my baby," I repeated, louder now, panic rising in my chest like floodwater. "My daughter had a birthmark. Right here, on her shoulder. This baby doesn't have it. This isn't her. The nurse's face remained professionally calm. Mrs. Esther, I understand you're exhausted. Childbirth is traumatic, and sometimes new mothers experience confusion. I'm not confused. I cut her off, my voice rising. I know what I saw. I held my baby for 20 minutes. I looked at every inch of her. She had a birthmark. The nurse pressed the call button, and within minutes, another nurse arrived, then Dr. Millicent herself. They all looked at me with the same expression, patience mixed with pity, the look adults give to confused children. They checked the baby's wristband, checked my chart, compared the ID numbers. Everything matched. Baby girl Esther, printed clearly on the hospital tag around the tiny wrist. Esther, Dr. Millicent said gently, taking my hand. I understand what you're feeling. Birth is exhausting. Your hormones are everywhere. The lighting in the delivery room can play tricks. Birthmarks can fade very quickly in newborns, sometimes within hours. This is definitely your daughter. I delivered her myself. I placed her in your arms. I promise you. But when she said, I promise you, her eyes shifted away for just a fraction of a second. Just enough. Please, I begged, tears streaming down my face now. Please just double-check. Please go to the nursery and make absolutely sure. Something is wrong. I can feel it. There's nothing wrong, the brisk nurse said firmly. Everything has been verified. You need to rest and bond with your baby. When Ezra came back and saw me crying, he tried to comfort me. Honey, look at her. She's beautiful. The doctors wouldn't make a mistake like this. This is our daughter. But I couldn't stop shaking. I held that baby and felt nothing but wrongness radiating from every pore. My body rejected it. My heart rejected it. Every instinct I had screamed that this child was not mine. They gave me a sedative to help with the anxiety, and I drifted into an uneasy sleep, the wrong baby lying in the bassinet beside me. I woke at 11:30 that night to voices in the hallway. Low, urgent, angry voices. I lay still, my heart pounding, straining to hear through the closed door. Need to be more careful, a man's voice hissed. I recognized it immediately. Dr. Carr. No one saw anything, a woman replied sharply. My blood turned to ice. Lerina. And even if someone did, who would believe it? She already tried to claim they made a mistake, and they shut her down. You said this would be simple, Dr. Carr snapped. In and out, no one the wiser. But she noticed, Lerina. She knew immediately. But they didn't believe her, Lerina shot back. That's what matters. The records are altered. The wristbands match. There's no proof. It's done. The nurse who helped. Patricia is loyal. And well paid. She'll keep her mouth shut. There was a pause. Then Dr. Carr's voice, lower now. What if she figures it out? What if she pushes harder? She won't, Lerina said coldly. New mothers are emotional, irrational. Everyone knows that. They'll just think she's having a breakdown. Maybe postpartum depression. By the time anyone takes her seriously, it'll be too late. The babies will be bonded to their new mothers. No one will want to traumatize them by switching them back. And the birthmark? Lerina laughed, a sound like breaking glass. I told you, I researched this. Lots of babies have temporary marks that fade. If she brings it up again, we just say it faded. Simple. You're playing a dangerous game, Dr. Carr warned. No, Lerina corrected. I'm taking what should have been mine from the beginning. Esther doesn't deserve a healthy baby. She doesn't deserve happiness. She gets everything, the perfect husband, the perfect life, the perfect child. While I get... Her voice cracked. While my baby fights to breathe. Your baby is getting better. But she's not perfect. Lerina shouted, then lowered her voice. She'll always be weak. Always be sickly. And I can't live with that. Not when Esther's perfect daughter was right there, healthy and strong. So you just decided to take her? Dr. Carr asked. Yes, Lerina said simply. And you took my money and made it happen. So we're both guilty, doctor. Both of us. Which means both of us need to make sure this secret stays buried. Footsteps moved away down the hallway. I lay in the dark, my entire body shaking, my mind struggling to process what I'd just heard. She'd done it. Lerina had actually done it. She'd paid Dr. Carr to steal my healthy baby and replace her with her own sick daughter. The betrayal was so massive, so monstrous, that I couldn't breathe. My vision tunneled. The room spun. I gripped the bed rails to keep from falling into darkness. My daughter, my real daughter, was in the NICU right now, labeled as Lerina's child, while I was being forced to bond with Lerina's baby. The rage that swept through me was unlike anything I'd ever felt. It was hot and cold at the same time, sharp enough to cut through steel. I wanted to run into the hallway and scream the truth until someone believed me. I wanted to find Lerina and make her pay for what she'd done. But then, through the red haze of fury, a thought crystallized in my mind. If she could switch them once, I could switch them back. And I could do it in a way that would leave her believing she'd won, while I quietly reclaimed what was mine. I spent the entire next day planning. While nurses checked on me, while Ezra held my hand and tried to comfort my confusion, while well-meaning family members visited and cooed over the wrong baby, I was mapping out every detail of the hospital's layout and routine. I watched the nurses' shift changes. The day shift left at 7 p.m. The night shift was smaller, less attentive, more stretched thin. I timed how often they checked the rooms, every 2 hours. I memorized which hallways had security cameras, mostly the main corridors and elevators, but not the side hallways or the NICU entrance. I noted that the NICU had a keypad lock, and I watched carefully when a nurse entered, memorizing the sequence of numbers. 4-7-2-9. I pretended to accept the baby in my bassinet, holding her, feeding her, murmuring to her. She was innocent in all this. She deserved love and care, even if she wasn't mine. But every time I looked at her, all I could think was, where is my real daughter? I asked casual questions about Lerina's baby, feigning concern. How is the little one in the NICU? Is she improving? Oh yes, a nurse said brightly. She's responding well to oxygen therapy. Her levels are stabilizing. She'll probably be moved to a regular bassinet tomorrow. Tomorrow would be too late. I had to act tonight. At 10 p.m., I told Ezra I was exhausted and needed sleep. He kissed me goodbye, promised to return first thing in the morning, and left. The moment he was gone, I waited for the nurse's check at 10:30, then carefully got out of bed. I'd already changed into regular clothes earlier, black leggings and a dark blue shirt, claiming I wanted to feel more like myself. I told them I was feeling much better, that I was ready to go home tomorrow, that everything was fine now. They believed me because people believe what they want to believe. I tucked Lerina's baby carefully into the bassinet, making sure she was warm and comfortable. Then I took a deep breath and opened the door. The hallway was dimly lit, quiet except for the hum of machines and distant voices. One nurse sat at the station halfway down the corridor, her head bent over paperwork. I moved silently, keeping close to the wall, my bare feet making no sound on the cold floor. The NICU was 3 doors past the nursery. I reached the keypad and paused, my heart hammering so hard I thought it would burst through my ribs. My fingers shook as I pressed the numbers. 4-7-2-9. The lock clicked. The door opened. I slipped inside. The NICU was warmer than the hallway, filled with the steady beeping of monitors and the soft whoosh of ventilators. 4 incubators lined the walls, each one glowing with soft blue light. I moved between them, scanning the name tags on each one. Baby boy Rodriguez. Baby girl Kim. Baby boy Chun. And there, in the 4th incubator, baby girl Lerina. I looked down at her through the clear plastic, and my vision blurred with tears. It was her. My daughter. She was sleeping peacefully, her tiny chest rising and falling steadily. Her dark hair had dried and was curling slightly at the edges. Her face was the face I remembered, the one I'd held for those precious 20 minutes. And when I gently adjusted her blanket to check, there it was, the strawberry-shaped birthmark on her left shoulder blade. I'm here, baby, I whispered, pressing my hand against the incubator. Mama's here. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I checked the monitors. Oxygen saturation, 97%. Heart rate, 142 beats per minute. Respiratory rate, normal. Whatever problems she'd been having were resolving. She was strong, just like I knew she would be. She was a fighter. She was mine. Working quickly, I checked that no alarms would sound when I moved her. I disconnected the monitoring leads gently, then carefully opened the incubator. She stirred when I lifted her, making a small sound, but didn't wake. I wrapped her securely in the hospital blanket and held her against my chest. Then I looked at the empty incubator and made the hardest decision of my life. I went back to my room, moving even more carefully now with my precious daughter in my arms. Lerina's baby was still sleeping peacefully in the bassinet. I lifted her gently and carried her back to the NICU. She needed medical care. She deserved the treatment and monitoring. This wasn't her fault. I placed her carefully in the incubator where my daughter had been, reconnected the monitors, and adjusted the oxygen support. The machines beeped steadily, accepting the new occupant without alarm. Then I returned to my room one final time, placed my real daughter in the bassinet, and stood there shaking. I'd done it. I'd stolen my own baby back. And Lerina would never know until it was far too late. I climbed back into bed and pulled my daughter close, breathing in her smell, feeling her warmth against me. She nuzzled into my chest and made a soft cooing sound, and I felt something inside me click into place. This was right. This was true. This was my child. I've got you now, I whispered into her hair. I'll never let anyone take you again. Never. Dr. Carr came to check on me the next morning, his professional smile firmly in place. But I saw the tightness around his eyes, the slight tremor in his hands as he checked my chart. How are we feeling today, Mrs. Esther? He asked. I looked directly at him and smiled. Much better, thank you. I think I was just overtired yesterday. You are all right. She's perfect. I gestured to the bassinet where my real daughter slept. I watched his eyes flicker to the baby, then back to me. Relief washed over his face so intensely that he almost sagged. I'm very glad to hear that. Sometimes the stress of labor can cause temporary confusion. I'm happy you're feeling more settled. Oh, I'm very settled now, I said, still smiling. Very settled indeed. When can we go home? This afternoon, if everything continues to go well, he said, already backing toward the door, clearly eager to escape. I'll have the nurse prepare your discharge papers. After he left, I sat alone with my daughter and let myself cry, tears of relief, rage, exhaustion, and fierce protective love. Before we left the hospital, I forced myself to visit Lerina. She was sitting up in bed, her face pale and drawn, dark circles under her eyes. When she saw me standing in the doorway, something flashed across her face. Guilt, fear, triumph, I couldn't tell. Maybe all three. Esther, she said, her voice carefully neutral. Congratulations on your daughter. Thank you, I replied, stepping into the room. And congratulations to you. I heard your baby is improving. That must be such a relief. She looked away. Yes. The doctors say she's getting stronger. I moved closer and sat in the chair beside her bed. She tensed, like a rabbit sensing a predator. I leaned forward and took her hand. She flinched but didn't pull away. I made sure to look directly into her eyes as I spoke, my voice soft but clear. Lerina, I want you to know something important. No matter what choices we make, no matter what we do in the dark thinking no one will ever know, the truth always comes out. Always. It might take days or years, but it rises to the surface like oil on water. You can't keep it down forever. Her face went white. Her hand trembled in mine. I smiled gently. I just mean we should always try to do the right thing. For our children. For ourselves. Because secrets have a way of destroying everything we try to build. Don't you think? She swallowed hard, her eyes wide. Yes. Yes, I suppose that's true. I squeezed her hand once, then released it. Take good care of your daughter, Lerina. Love her. Protect her. Treat her like she's the most precious thing in the world. Because she is. Every child deserves that. Then I stood and walked out, carrying my real daughter in my arms, my head held high. I never looked back. The years that followed were the most complicated of my life. Beautiful and terrible, liberating and suffocating, all at the same time. Beautiful because I had my daughter. My real, biological, perfect daughter. I named her Zaira, it means radiance in an ancient language, and she lived up to that name every single day. She was bright, curious, strong-willed, compassionate, and fierce. She filled our home with laughter and light and endless questions about how the world worked. Watching her grow was like watching a miracle unfold in slow motion. Every milestone, first word, first step, first day of school, first science fair trophy, felt sacred because I'd fought to keep her. She was mine in a way that went beyond biology, beyond law. She was mine because I'd walked through fire to bring her home. But the terrible part, the suffocating part, was watching Lerina raise her own daughter without knowing the truth. She named the baby Calla. And from the very beginning, she was cruel to her. It started subtle, a certain coldness in the way Lerina held her, an impatience in her voice when Calla cried, a distance that no baby should ever feel from their mother. As Calla grew from infant to toddler to child, the cruelty became more obvious. At family gatherings, I watched Lerina criticize everything about Calla. Why are you so clumsy? Why can't you be graceful like Zaira? Why do you cry so much? Why are you so weak? Calla had respiratory problems that persisted through childhood, asthma, frequent bronchitis, a susceptibility to pneumonia. Nothing life-threatening, but enough to require extra care, inhalers, regular doctor visits. And Lerina treated every illness like a personal failing. I can't take you anywhere, she'd snap when Calla had an asthma attack at a restaurant. You're always sick. Always causing problems. Meanwhile, Nolan was everything a father should be, patient, loving, attentive. He carried Calla when she got tired, read her stories every night, encouraged her interests in art and music. But he worked 70 hours a week at his law firm, and when he wasn't there, Calla was alone with her mother's coldness. Watching it was torture. Every time Lerina criticized Calla, I wanted to scream, she's your daughter. Your flesh and blood. How can you treat your own child this way? But I couldn't say anything. Because revealing the truth would mean admitting what I'd done. It would mean investigations, legal questions, medical inquiries. It would mean Zaira finding out she'd been stolen twice, once by Lerina, once by me. It would mean risking everything I'd fought to protect. So I stayed silent and tried to help in small ways. I invited Calla to our house constantly. Zaira and Calla became inseparable, more like sisters than cousins. Calla spent most weekends at our home, and I made sure she knew she was loved, valued, important. I praised her artwork, encouraged her singing, told her she was smart and capable and good. Thank you for being so kind to her, Nolan said to me once, his voice heavy with exhaustion. I know Lerina can be difficult. Calla needs positive influences. She's a wonderful child, I replied honestly. Anyone would be lucky to spend time with her. And she was wonderful, sensitive, creative, empathetic. Despite her mother's coldness, Calla grew into a beautiful soul. It made Lerina's treatment of her even more heartbreaking. Sometimes I'd catch Lerina watching Zaira with an expression I couldn't quite read. Hunger? Regret? Envy? Her eyes would track Zaira's movements, the confident way she spoke, the easy way she laughed, the healthy glow of her skin, and something dark would cross Lerina's face. Once, at a family barbecue when the girls were 12, Zaira won a school award for academic excellence. Everyone celebrated, and Lerina cornered me in the kitchen. She's so perfect, Lerina said, staring at Zaira through the window. Your daughter. So healthy, so confident, so successful. You're very lucky, Esther. There was something in her voice that made my blood run cold. Calla is wonderful too, I said carefully. Lerina's jaw tightened. Calla is weak. She's always been weak. I thought it would get better, but... She trailed off, then turned to me with eyes that were frighteningly empty. Sometimes I wonder what it would have been like if things had been different. Different how? I asked, even though I knew. She smiled, and it was like looking at a skull. Never mind. Just a mother's idle thoughts. She walked away, and I stood there shaking, realizing that somewhere deep in her subconscious Lerina knew. Maybe not consciously, maybe not in a way she could articulate, but some part of her understood that she was destroying her own child because of a lie she'd told herself 20 years ago. Ezra never knew the truth. I almost told him 1,000 times, lying beside him in the dark, during quiet moments on the porch, during arguments when secrets felt too heavy to carry alone. But every time I opened my mouth to confess, I thought about the consequences. What if he couldn't forgive me? What if it destroyed our marriage? What if, in his horror at what I'd done, he somehow let the truth slip to Nolan? What if it all fell apart? So I carried the weight alone, and it carved hollows in my soul that never quite filled in. The years passed like water through fingers. Kala and Zyra grew into teenagers, then young women. Kala fought against her mother's cruelty by becoming even kinder, as if she could balance out the darkness in her life with extra light. She studied music therapy at university, determined to help other people heal from pain. Zyra studied business, sharp and ambitious like her father, but tempered with compassion. She wanted to build things, create opportunities, make a difference. I was so proud of both of them I could barely speak some days. And through it all, I carried the secret like a stone in my chest, growing heavier with each passing year, until I sometimes felt I would collapse under the weight. I told myself it would die with me, that I would carry it to my grave, and no one would ever have to know. But secrets don't die. They just wait for the right moment to break free, directly into the next section, the celebration that changed everything. Please like, comment, and share. If this is your first time watching my video, don't forget to subscribe to my channel so you'll be notified whenever I post a new story.